بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. We'll continue our study of التبيان في آداب حملة القرآن لسيدنا Imam al-Nawawi, and we have been speaking about the ikhlas, the sincerity of the muqri and the qari, the Quran teacher as well as the Quran reciter. Tafadhal.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. From the book Etiquette with the Quran by Imam Abu Zakaria Yahya an-Nawawi, nafa'ana Allahu bihi wa bi'ulumihi fi darain ameen, ila an qal, chapter 4, page 12. Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad radiyallahu anhu said, leaving an action for the sake of others is showing off. Acting for the sake of others is a kind of idolatry. Sincerity is Allah protecting you from the two. Sahal al-Tustari rahimahullah said, the astute have looked into the meaning of sincerity and have found none other than this, that one's motion and stillness and what is secret and what is public be solely for Allah Most High. He mixes nothing with it, not ego nor whim, nothing of this world. Sadi rahimahullah said, do not do anything for the sake of others, and do not abandon anything for their sake. Do not cover anything for them, and do not reveal anything for them. Al-Qushayri said, the most superior truthfulness is when the secret and public are equal. Al-Harith al-Muhaysibi rahimahullah said, the truthful one is he who has no concern if the estimation people have for him were to depart from their hearts, so as to maintain the soundness of his own heart. He does not like people inspecting an atom's weight of his excellent actions, but he does not mind people inspecting his evil deeds. If he were to dislike the latter, this would indicate that he loves greater esteem on their part, and this is not the proper behavior of the truthful and trusting saints, Siddiqeen. Another said, if you seek Allah Most High through truthfulness, He would give you a mirror by which you could see every wonder of this world and the next. The sayings of the righteous forebearers, Salaf, concerning this are many. We have referred to some of them so as to point out the objective here. I have mentioned most of them with their commentary in the beginning of the book, Sharh al-Muhadhaba, in addition to some of the etiquette Muhadhab, in addition to some of the etiquette of the teacher and the student, and the legis and his student, which no student of knowledge can do without, and Allah knows best.
Bismillah. So this is the fourth chapter of the book, and this is a quite long chapter and has several subsections. There's different ways of using this language, but in general, we talk about a bab. A bab literally is a door, but here it's a chapter. And then each chapter has what's called a fasl, has multiple fusul. And so that we are still in the fasl of ikhlas al-muqri wal qari. And this is the natural starting point because this whole affair essentially is about sincerity. If we are not sincere, then we have no religion in reality. And if we are not sincere, then our acts are not going to be accepted. One of the prerequisites for the acceptance of our deeds is sincerity. We desire nothing else through that act other than drawing near to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So now he quotes the statement of Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, one of the great imams of the spiritual path. Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad, rahimahullah ta'ala, قال ترك العمل لأجل الناس رياء والعمل لأجل الناس شرك. So this translates, leaving an action for the sake of others is showing off. Acting for the sake of others is a kind of idolatry. So you don't want to do either or. وَالْإِخْلَاص إِنْ يُعَافِيَكَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى مِنْهُمَا. And sincerity is Allah Ta'ala protecting you from the two. So sometimes there's things that we don't do because people are present. And then there's things that we do because people are present. And the whole point is that we want to be sincere in everything that we do. Are we to imagine that no one is around, no one will ever see or ever know what it is that we do? We have to do for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. It's actually a type of riyā. It's one of the more subtle forms of ostentation. or someone's alone, but because they're trapped in wahm, in these fanciful imaginations, these delusions, they actually imagine people knowing that it is that they're do what they're doing, and they commit riya without even other people being around. We want to just be sincere. Now, there is something that happens when we're around good people. We tend to be more motivated to do good. That's not necessarily riya. Riya is only doing something because someone's there. So just the way we do dhikr and jama'ah here, and we remember Allah Ta'ala collective in a group, that benefits us all so that we can help each other do good. That's fine. Just make the intention when doing it is that one's act is for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. And there's different ways that we can determine whether we're sincere or not. One of the righteous was praying in the front row for many years. And all of a sudden one day he didn't make it. And then he had to pray at the back. And then he started worrying about what people were going to think of him because he was praying at the back. So then it came to his mind that La ilaha illallah, for 20 years I've been praying in the front row and it's all been riya. Because why would it matter whether someone else knows we pray in the back or not? Or are we worried about what they think? If we're praying for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, we're divorced from what people think or not. So these are things we learn so that we can work on being sincere, so that we can have benchmarks and places and checks and balances in place to make sure that what we're doing is sincere. One Sahal al-Tustari rahimahullah ta'ala, this great Imam Sahal Tustari. What did he say? Nadar al-Akyas. Akyas is the plural of Qiyas. Fi tafsir al-Akhlas. Al-Ikhlas. The astute, the intelligent people have looked into the meaning of sincerity. And what? فَلَمْ يَجِدُوا غَيْرَ هَذَا. And have found none other than this. What is it? أَن تَكُونَ حَرَكَتُهُ. What's its harakah? Movement. وَسُكُونُهُ. Stillness. فِي سِرِّهِ وَعَلَانِيَتِهِ. Secretly, yani, what's internal and what's public. And وَعَلَانِيَتِهِ لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى وَحْدَهُ. So what is the state of sincerity? That one's motion, stillness. And what is secret and what is public? Be solely for Allah Most High. Everything we do, privately, publicly, outwardly, inwardly, lillah, faqat. La, and to emphasize that, la yumazijuhu shay. Maz, just to be mixed with something. Mizaj is your temperament, but your mixture, literally. Right? He mixes nothing with it. And what are the other examples of things that we need to know about so that we don't, these are the things that taint our sincerity. Nafs, ego, hawa, whim or desire, wala dunya, or things of this world. So in order to truly become sincere, and this is why sincerity is a process, is that we have to be able to put our nafs into check, be able to curb our desires, and be able to be careful about what it is that we partake in from the affairs of this world. And then, An-Asiri, rahimahullah, Asiri as-Saqati, rahimahullah ta'ala, qala, la ta'mal an-nas shay'a, wa la tughriruhum shay'a. Do not do anything for the sake of others, and do not abandon anything for their sake. Right? Don't do things for people. And even though there are things that you say, oh, this, you've done a lot for me, and of course we do things for people in the sense that you want to help people, but don't make your intention behind doing things for people the people, if that makes sense. Help people, but for Allah, not for them to praise you or for them to do this or that or to receive something in return or in the future to get a favor return. No, khalas, lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do it only for His sake. And then he says, do not cover anything for them and do not reveal anything for them. Imam al-Qushayri, the great Imam, who wrote the famous work, the Risalatul Qushayriya, the Qushayrian epistle, one of the great works of Tasawwuf. It is one of the great manuals that has been studied throughout the centuries and is studied still to this day. Is, what does he say? أقل الصدق استواء السر والعلانية. the most superior truthfulness is when the secret and public are equal. Maybe he's operating from a different copy here. That this is the least. This is the first stage. Is that your outward is the same as your inward. And then we have this blessed statement of this Imam the Al-Harith Al-Muhasibi. Al-Muhasibi. He has a beautiful book titled Risalat al-Mustarshideen, the treatise for the seekers that Imam Zayd Shakir translated. And everyone wants to have a copy of that. He's one of the very early Imams of this deen, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, wa nafa'ana bih. And he has a blessed statement here where that he talks about who the Sadiq is. He says, the truthful one is he who has no concern if the estimation of people have for him were to depart from their hearts, so as to maintain the soundness of his own heart. He does not like people inspecting an atom's weight of his excellent actions, but he does not mind people inspecting his evil deeds. If he were to dislike the latter, this would indicate that he loves greater esteem on their part, and this is not the proper behavior of the truthful and trusting saints, Siddiqeen. It doesn't mean that we readily expose our faults to people, la. But it means that we all know ourselves very well. And unfortunately, throughout human history, it's always been the case, but especially now, because we have modern technology that make the situation worse, is that the celebrity culture in which we live poses challenges to our sincerity, why it is that we do what it is that we do. And ultimately, we want to make sure to do everything that we do for the sake of Allah Jalla Jalaluh. And we just need to be real. We need to be real to get beyond the veneer and the facade of the modern world where people are performing. And we mentioned this before, but are we coming to places of learning and to that places in order to be formed or to perform? Increasingly, more and more people are just performing. They're not coming to be formed. And unfortunately, this is one of the things that happens with social media, because everybody has a platform now. And you might not even know what you're talking about, but you have a platform. And you might be able to make really good videos that from the standpoint of production are like top notch, but the content is lacking, or it could be totally off. And who knows what people's intentions are. We have a good opinion of people. But the point is that because of the lack of substance, people get caught in the web of many of these things. And oftentimes it's performance. And you even see things like this when you attend conferences and things of this nature. Unfortunately, that there's oftentimes a performance element to it. And if we're sincere with Allah Ta'ala, is that the happiest that we'll be is that when we're in khalwa, when no one else around, and that's when we have the most energy, when we can find intimacy and remembrance of Allah Ta'ala in sending salawat upon His Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If we enjoy the limelight and then we just find it difficult being alone, this is a sign that we're not fit to be a da'i, someone who's going to contribute to the da'wah and to really serve people. And so that we have to be very, very careful and just keep it real. And what studying these books does is it helps that keep it real in the real meaning of keep it real, not in the Jahili street sense and that Islamic spiritual sense, keeping it real. And part of that is that we already know how many faults we have, even though we don't want people to know our faults, that if they that do come to know our faults, we know we already have them. So it's a matter of, okay, help me get better. Right? And that's the context of what is mentioned here. He does not like people inspect, whereas the good deeds we do, we don't want anyone to know about them. And that, and there's this beautiful dua that our teachers recommend that we say this after regularly, at least. Allahumma akhrij min qalbi It's a dua of Imam Haddad. كل قدر للدنيا وكل محل للخلق. O Allah, remove from my heart all regard for the world and any place for people. Allahumma akhrij min qalbi. Right? Uproot, remove from my heart. What? Kula qadran lid-dunya. So this is the same word that was used here. What is this word? Qadr. And that kulu qadran lahu fi qulub al-khalq. So here we translate that the word any regard for the world, any mahal al-khalq, any place for people that does what? Yamilu bi ila ma'siyatik, that pulls me towards disobeying you. Aw yashghuluni an ta'atik, or preoccupies me from obeying you. Aw yuhulu bayni wa bayna tahakkuki bi ma'rifatika al-khassati wa muhabbatika al-khadisa, or impedes me from the realization of elect knowledge and pure love of you. That's the goal. As we want ma'rifa khasa, special elect gnosis, experiential knowledge of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And mahabba khadisa, the pure, unadulterated love with nothing in the way of it. And what comes between us and that? The main things is that having qadr in a heart for dunya, having regard for the world, and having a place for people. And to the extent that we have regard for the world and a place for people is to the extent that we will be pulled to ma'asiyah, to acts of disobedience. Will be to the extent that we are that preoccupied from obedience. And again, it doesn't mean that we have things of the world, nor does it mean that we don't spend time with people. You can have things of the world. You can spend time with people. But be careful. That's the whole point here. Is that work on these very subtle manifestations of this. Oh Allah, remove from my heart all regard for the world and any place for people that pulls me towards disobeying you, preoccupies me from obeying you, or impedes me from the realization of elect knowledge and pure love of you. If someone reminds me, we can send this out. And the recommendation is to recite this regularly, multiple times a day, maybe after even every prayer. And the hope is Allah Ta'ala does this for us and answers the dua. Tamam. And then that we have this other statement of, he says, وَأَنْ غَيْرِهِ, someone else said, إِذَا طَلَبْتَ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى بِالصِّدْقِ. Look at the result. If you seek closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truthfully, right? If you seek Allah through truthfulness, what will be the result? أَعْطَاكَ, Allah will give you mir'atan. Mir'ah is a mirror. What's going to happen? تُبْصِرُ فِيهَا, you will see in it كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, everything مِنْ عَجَائِبِ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, every wonder of this world and the next. If our teachers speak of sidq, which is closely related to ikhlas, as being like a safe qata, like a sharp cutting sword. That if you have sidq, this is the way that you just penetrate the different types of veils. Because there's what are called hujab dhulmaniya, and there's hujab nuraniya. There's veils of darkness and there's veils of light. The veils of darkness you turn away from. This is like sin, that excessive indulging in the world, that the wasawwas of the shayateen and so forth, all the disease of the heart, you have to turn away from those and cut through them. And then you turn away from them. And then the veils of light, there's also then veils of light, where you're performing good acts, but you think that you're the one acting. You start to rely upon your acts instead of relying upon Allah Ta'ala after acting. These are much more subtle. And so those you have to travel through. And so that we don't want to be veiled by anything, not from a veil of light, a veil of darkness, nor a veil of light. We want to achieve the goal. And so he's saying here is that through the blessing of sidq, this is what happens. He'll give you a mir'ah. He'll give you a mirror whereby which is that you see the wonders of this world and the hereafter. And he says, وَأَقَاوِيلَ السَّلَفِ. Aqawil are sayings. Sayings. From what's the root of aqawil? Qawl. So قَالِ يَقُولُ قَوْلًا. Of the salaf. The salaf are the righteous forebears. the early generation of Muslims. They had the kathira. There's many various statements that they have about these. Al-shanna ida hadil ahruf minha. He only indicated to him something of them. Tanbihan ala al-matlub, to indicate what he intended by doing so. And then he says, وَقَدْ ذَكَرْتُ جُمَلًا مِنْ ذَلِكَ مَا شَرِحَ فِي أَوَّلِ شَرْحِ الْمُهَذَّبِ. Muhaddab is the great book by Imam Shirazi in Shafi Fiqh. And then he has a very long, voluminous commentary called the Majmu' on this blessed book. And so that he says is that he just very briefly mentioned it here, because what does he set out to do here? This is about ikhtisar. He wants to be brief, and this is abridged. But then the Muhaddab, mashallah, I have it upstairs if anyone wants to see it. Tabarakallah, it's like this big. The ulama, what they've done, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. The Majmu' rather, is the Sharh Muhaddab. It's just like this. It's an amazing book. وضممت إليها من آداب المعلم والمتعلم والفقيه والمتفقه وما لا يستغني عنه طالب العلم. He says, in addition to some of the etiquette of the teacher and the student and the scholar and his student, which no student of knowledge can do without. So begin here, and then next step, read the introduction of the Muhaddab, of the Sharh of the Muhaddab. طيب, Faslun. Now this is a new chapter. So whenever you see the bold title here, that's indicating a new chapter. Not seeking a worldly objective.
Not seeking a worldly objective. The teacher must not make his intentions to teach for the purpose of attaining some worldly objective, such as wealth, leadership, influence, rising above his peers, gaining people's praise, or drawing their attention to himself. One does not dishonor his teaching of the Quran by hoping to obtain some favor, by way of an influential student who recites to him, whether the favor is in the form of property or some service, however small, or even a gift that he would not have received had it not been for his student reciting to him. Allah Most High says, "Whoever seeks the harvest of the hereafter, we shall increase his harvest, and whoever seeks the harvest of this world, we shall give him of it here, but in the hereafter he will have no portion. Whoever desires the immediate gains of this world, we hasten what we will to whomever we will." Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu stated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever learns knowledge by which one customarily seeks the pleasure of Allah Most High, but learns in order to obtain one of this world's riches, he will not find the scent of paradise on the Day of Judgment." Abu Dawood related it with a rigorously authenticated chain. There are many hadiths similar to it. Anas, Hudhayfa, and Ka'ab ibn Malik radiyallahu anhum stated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whoever seeks knowledge so that he can contest fools, vie with scholars, or attract attention toward himself, occupies his seat in the fire." Tirmidhi related it from the account of Ka'ab ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu that states it puts him into the fire.
So one of the intentions we should have when reading this blessed book, from the barakah of reading this book from this great Imam, whose heart was alive with these meanings, is that these meanings, inshallah ta'ala, that come to our hearts, and from the barakah of Ramadan, is that we become fully realized in everything it is that we're reading. This is possible. It's also possible for us just to read over the meanings and then just have it go in one ear and out the other. And khalas. We read it 10, 15, 20 times. Then we become desensitized to it. We don't have any portion of connecting to them. It's possible that you read it one time from the barakah of reading it, and that Allah Ta'ala that puts a concern in your heart to take your life seriously, to actualize these blessed meanings. It's also possible. And then Allah Ta'ala, from the time that you hear it, that changes you. And never again are you the same as you were before. And then these meanings are permanently fixed in your heart for the rest of your life. That's possible. And then there's degrees after that. The vast majority of us will be impacted, and we'll heed this, and then we get to read again, and then we come back to that. And we fluctuate back and forth. But at least that, we hope, is that we'll attain the smaller portion and the minimal portion, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So he says here now, is that this is a new section on not seeking a worldly objectives. You could say this is fil i'rad and a'rad al-dunya. This is i'rad is turning away from. What the a'rad of the dunya, all of the various things of this world. And so he says the teacher must not make his intentions to teach for the purpose of some worldly objective. So this relates to the qari and the muqra of the Quran, just as it relates to that anyone else teaching in really anything else it is that we do. We do it for the right reasons. So we don't do it for the purpose of attaining some worldly objective. Because any seeking of a worldly objective, then this contradicts the sincerity that it is we're striving to have. What are some examples about that? Such as wealth. And, alhamdulillah, I'm very happy that we all got to hear those blessed words of Mufti Azim Madin when he came to visit us. These are reminders. And from now, we want to be very clear about what we hope to do in the future. The doors will open up for you for dunya. But that's the danger. The danger is not going through straitened circumstances where things are difficult. The danger is when the world opens up for you and opportunities open up for you. And all the hakada. This is the mahal mzallat al-aqdam. This is where people's feet slip. And so, such as wealth. Wealth, we don't seek it through it. We don't seek wealth through religious teaching, let alone leadership or influence or to rise above our peers, to be better than so-and-so. And sometimes the subtle things, like especially if there's a little bit of animosity between people or a little bit of a rivalry. So sometimes in our mind, we're playing these scenarios, and that if this happens, we play this scenario in our mind that we kind of outdid and outstripped so-and-so, this type of thing. Why are we letting this refuse into our hearts? We should be above all of that. Is that we want to attain? What is it we're seeking? But we want our brothers to attain. We want our fellow sisters to attain. We want everyone else to achieve as well. And if the more sincere we are, the more we will actually want other people to even achieve more. Why? Because it's not about us. It seems so simple. It's not about us. Why shouldn't we be happy if someone attains a degree of closeness to Allah Ta'ala much higher than yours? They're going to worship Allah better. Are we not happy that Allah is worshipped better by the individual? If it's about us, it just has to be me. But the great awliya that are entrusted with the greatest of secrets and the most powerful of states, they're not like that. They don't see themselves as deserving of anything to begin with, and anything that they get, they're thankful. And if someone outstrips them, they realize that's from the fadl of Allah. It's Allah's bounty, and Allah gave that person that. And then that means that that person is going to remember Allah more, to worship Allah better. And how could you not like that if you're divorced from the ananiya and the egotism of the nafs? And then if we can get that in our hearts, then there is real purity that will manifest in really great and beautiful ways in a number of different things that you and I do. So gaining people's praise or drawing their attention to himself. And then he wants to point to something else here really important. One does not dishonor his teaching of the Quran by hoping to attain some favor by way of a student who recites them, whether the favor is in the form of property or some service, however small, or even a gift that he would not have received had it not been for a student reciting to him. So I've seen people that come and give our teachers gifts after classes, things like that, and they dislike it. It's one of the few times where they might refuse something. In general, if someone gives them the gift, that they'll accept it. But they don't like it to be like after a class, because they don't want it to seem like they're getting that gift that as a result, because of the class that is that they're teaching, as a compensation or to reciprocate for it. No. Someone wants to just give a gift to them. And now sometimes is that you're not able to see that person again after that. That has its own scenario. But in general, this is how they are. Is they don't want compensation. monetarily, nor do they want any other type of recompense for people. And that oftentimes, and this is why he has in brackets, they're an influential student. There are some times where if someone has a young student who's influential, it's a way for them to, oh, who did I give shahada to? Oh, do you know who's one of my students? Right? It's a way for like influence. And the shaitan creeps in the heart in ways, a'udhu billah, and uses these natural desires that we have. And this is why we study these books. This is why we study this, to prevent ourselves from these vices. Because when they grip the heart, is that we become derailed. And so we shouldn't ever teach or give da'wah or help anyone with the intention that, or the hope even, that we benefit from them in any way. Whether that they give us some type of money, whether they like serve us or something of that nature, or even a gift. We teach lillah. And having said that, that if the person who is learning from the other person wants to give a gift and so forth, and that's very natural. You love your teachers, you want to give them gifts, that's fine. But the one teaching shouldn't want those gifts, or shouldn't privilege the students who actually give them the gifts and so forth and so on. So we want to remove that from the heart. And from this is the same conversation of honorariums. If you are being trained to serve this deen as you move forward, is that you need to learn the adab of dealing with honorariums. And in general, the standard, although this is a low standard, but the basic standard is we don't even think about honorariums, nor demand them, nor do we stipulate them. And if someone happens to give you a gift or an honorarium for something that you do for the da'wah, is that it's fine to take it, and if you need it, use it for your needs. But you don't think in your mind like, how much am I going to get? That if I go there, you don't go there. You don't go there. Allah will provide for you. And then if you don't need it, then you can give the money in charity, or give part of the money in charity. And so we need to be very careful there, because once that door opens up for demanding honorariums, nasallahu ta'ala salama wal afiyah, right? Now, this is in relation to deen. If you are a public speaker because it's your trade, it's your job, you're teaching people that a type of technical knowledge or it's some type of service, that's a different conversation. What we're talking about is for the religion. Right? We're talking about earning money through teaching and through doing khutbahs and teaching classes and things of that nature. And if we could find a way out where we could still do this without having to accept honorariums, that's even better. Because then you're free, khalas. You just teach solely for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. You're not even thinking about these things. And if you have to accept honorariums that you consider to be something kind of like dirty, just the way that, khalas, yani, use the bathroom because you have to. Right? No one's going to overdo using the bathroom, excuse me for the example. But no one's going to sit there and talk about what comes out of their system and things like that when you're using the bathroom. You have to do it. Use the bathroom, get out of the bathroom, and get back to life. Right? When it comes to see these things like that, just something that I need this to get by in khas. Right? That's a much healthier perspective than to like being motivated by tama' and desire for the things of this world when it comes to these things. Allahumma salli ala wa ala. And then, Allahu Akbar, he quotes a verse of the Quran that hammers this point home. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُرِيد. Whoever seeks, arada yuridu, is to seek, to desire. وَمَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ. Whoever desires, whoever seeks what? حَرْثَ الدُّنْيَا. Very eloquent. The harth of something is the harvest of it. The harvest of this world. That what happens? Nu'ti minha. We will give him that something of it. Right? We'll give him something of it. وَمَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِن نَصِيبٍ. And he will have no portion of the hereafter. So if you look at the way that this is expressed, so whoever seeks the the harvest of this world, we'll nu'ti minha. We'll give him something of it. You're never going to even fully attain everything you want from this world. وَمَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِن نَصِيبٍ. But that person will have no portion hereafter. To the extent that we take our portion now here, will be to the extent that we have less of a portion on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And then, وَمَنْ كَانَ يُرِيدُ الْعَاجِلَةَ عَجَّلْنَا لَهُ فِيهَا مَا نَشَاءُ لِمَنْ نُرِيدُ. Whoever desires the immediate gains of this world, we hasten what we will to whoever we will. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then these two very important hadith. These need to be studied. These need to be read and reread. These meanings need to be internalized. It's not enough just to quickly go over it in the Rawha and not study it before or not study it after. These meanings need to be read and internalized and lived by for the rest of our lives and everything is that we do. So the first is narrated by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. He stated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man ta'allama ilman mimma yubtagha bihi wajhu Allah ta'ala." Whoever learns knowledge by which one customarily seeks the pleasure of Allah Most High. But what does he learn it for? لا يتعلم إلا ليصيب به عرضا من الدنيا. But learns it in order to obtain one of the world's riches. What is the result? لم يجد ألف الجنة يوم القيامة. He will not find the scent of paradise on the Day of Judgment. So he has a note there. Let's read that note. The note is that he mentions the takhrij, but the note is actually after the next hadith, which is similar meaning. Okay, and then in the next hadith, one Anas wa Hudayfa wa Ka'b ibn Malik. So three different companions: Anas ibn Malik, Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, and Ka'b ibn Malik. Radiyallahu anhum. Anna Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam qala. They said that the Messenger of Allah said, "Man talaba al-ilma liyumari bihi as-sufaha." Whoever seeks knowledge so that he can contest with fools. O yukathira bil ulama, vie with scholars. O yasrifa bihi wujuha nas ilayh, or attract attention toward himself. Falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar. Translate here as occupies his seat in the hereafter. Or you can say, then let him take his seat in the fire. This is not why we seek knowledge. So the first one is a general warning about things of this world, is that we seek knowledge liwajhillah, not for aradan min ad-dunya, not for something of this world. Our Prophet is, this is really serious. This is religious knowledge. This is sacred knowledge. The goal of this is to draw near to Allah Ta'ala. So you start to see the danger here when the scholarly class becomes corrupt. This is why Imam Ghazali goes on a diatribe and lays into scholars who are insincere, because he realizes the danger of having a religious class of people who are corrupt and immoral and insincere, and the destruction that that causes with other religious people who want to draw near to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, and in general people of faith. It's one of the most dangerous things of all. And that to a certain degree, that this is throughout history, this has existed. But there's manifestations of this that you and I are all dealing with as well in our particular time, and as well as a whole host of other problems. But here, we don't seek knowledge in order to contest fools. Some people seek knowledge in order to be able to argue. That's not why we seek knowledge. And if someone's in the shower thinking about how they can out-argue their opponent, and now if you see a lot of these videos, they get traction. There are the videos of people being invited to these famous TV hosts and this type of thing, and now it turns into YouTube videos and so forth, and that debates and arguing and so forth. And it's not to say that we don't need people in those places to clarify and articulate the reality of Islam. Of course you do. What we're talking about here is intention. Is that we have to be careful when it comes to our intention. Not that we can't ever take part in something like that. If we're sincere, you can. But it can't become the number one reason that we do it, and especially if it means is that we're trying to attract attention by doing it. If our goal is to clarify the reality of the deen, tamam, right? And the number one thing is when we seek knowledge, what should our intention be? Amal. How can I put this knowledge into practice? When we read the Quran, how can I put this knowledge into practice? When you study fiqh, how can I put this knowledge into practice? Everything is that we study. See in all the other disciplines. Be careful that when you start preparing material for classes, is that it becomes just to give the class, as opposed to, even though you're the teacher, you putting that knowledge into practice. And so, if someone seeks knowledge to contest fools or vie with scholars for the sake of vying, and so that you've made something that is a means and end in and of itself. This is one of the fundamental problems, is making things that are means ends. You've made something that's a means and end in and of itself. And what is or to attract attention toward himself? Look what our Prophet is saying. It's a severe warning. فَلْيَتَبَوَّأْ مَقْعَدُهُ مِنَ النَّارِ. Let this person take his seat in the fire. Our Prophet is indicating the severity of this, not just in relation to that individual, but in relation to all of the other people that he's misleading. زَلَّةُ الْعَالَمِ يَدِلُّ بِالْعَالَمِ. The slip-up, mistake of the scholar can lead the whole world astray. Literally. In other words, the slip-up of a person of knowledge can lead a lot of people astray. Because people are just looking in their minds for examples. Oh, so-and-so does it, so I can do it. People are looking for justifications, the nature of people. They're looking for justification. Oh, so-and-so does it? Oh, I can do it. Oh, I saw him do it, so I can do it. Da, da, da. Right? We're going to be careful with that. This is especially the case of the awam, the common Muslim. So the next section is on not objecting to students reciting with others. These are so important. These topics are so important. Because you have oftentimes these little fiefdoms that people create. Right? My students. They see them as like, my students. And they don't want people to benefit from other people. Whereas if we're sincere, it should be the opposite. We want people to benefit from anyone and everyone that can help them.